I help run the demandcurve.com marketing training program. I also write TechCrunch's marketing column, and I used to run marketing at a company called Webflow. This webinar, which is all about critiquing your landing pages live, is going to be split into 3 sections. There's going to be 2 short rapid-fire batches of critiques, so it doesn't drone on and get boring. And then after each batch, we're going to do a Q&A to dive into your advanced questions. All right, so you also heard the voice of Bob. He's my co-host on this webinar. He's the lead evangelist at Leadpages in Minneapolis. And Leadpages is a website and landing page creation platform that we recommend at Demand, which is why I asked him to join us today. So in a nutshell, Leadpages is a very streamlined platform for creating higher converting landing pages, which is what we're going to be talking about. And so it kind of lets you do it without the friction of overly complex alternatives. And one of the reasons we like it is because it works alongside your existing website. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention they're actually giving webinar listeners a really good deal on new accounts over at leadpages.net/demandcurve. We're going to do something pretty cool here, I think, which is we're going to differentiate my batch of landing page critiques from Bob's by mine being true first impressions and Bob's being more premeditated. And so with me, I want you to hear what goes through my head in real time, like a real visitor on your website would.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this too, Julian. I just wanted to say hello to you and Neil, and really excited that everybody's joined in as you're getting your screen set up.
Okay, super engagement for content marketers. I kind of know what that means because I recognize that when I'm creating content, engagement is one of the key metrics, but it's not really clear what I'm being sold yet. So let's keep reading. Deliver the formats your users love instantly. AI powered, 100% automated. Okay, way too much stuff going on here. So typically, let's first define our terms. Header, subheader, right? And this overall section, we would call the hero section very often. And so typically with the header, I want a self-evident, self-descriptive sentence saying, this is what this is about in a way that I cannot misconstrue. So I can immediately say, yep, I'm on the right webpage. This is the tool I actually want to buy. If you're vague, if you're cute, if you use jargon, my eyes glaze over. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to start skimming now, and which we're going to get back to later, why you really don't want that. This is a totally fine header. I get it. Increase engagement for people who do content marketing. The subheader, however, as a compliment, usually you want to give people a reason why your product is differentiated and why you should bother reading this whole landing page. So the header often is like, this is what this is. Subheader is like, this is why you should care. Now, I know that's kind of a formula, and you do not have to follow formulas, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's a really safe starting point where you kind of can't go wrong. So let's quickly critique the subheader, then I want to go into some of the more advanced insights as we progress through this page. Speaking of which, a lot of these insights I'll try to share will be sort of intermediate to advanced aimed, I hope. Okay, subheader, deliver the formats your users love instantly. Okay, instantly is a fluff word. AI powered, that's silly jargon and my eyes roll over. I don't know what the significance of that is. 100% automated. I mean, what software isn't automated? I think I get the gist of what you're saying. It's kind of seamless, but it's not landing with me. I don't care. My eyes are glazing over. Share on social, embed on pages, and double your engagement. Okay, what if we actually started with what matters, which is double your engagement by X, Y, and Z. And 3 clear reasons why Felix, which is the name of this product, is significantly better than the competition. That might be really powerful, and you can make that succinct. So let's keep scrolling here. Instagram stories, audio clips, snackable video. So this person's saying, here are key features. The problem is very long horizontal lists with lots of things. My eyes similarly glaze over. Give me 3 or 4 things to focus on at a time, and make sure each is self-evident, which these do a good job of. I get what Instagram stories are. And by the way, the design so far is beautiful, super professional, and I don't think these are a bunch of amateurs by any means. Okay, moving on to a testimonial. Is it smart to go from hero right to testimonial? In my experience, A/B testing hundreds or thousands of landing pages for companies, I would say oftentimes it's a pretty solid bet, which is showing social proof right after the hero. The general idea is, listen, now you know what we do, you know why we're different and useful, and this is why you should believe us. That's sort of the purpose of the social proof. It's like, here you go. This is why everything we just said is real, because we are experts, as is proven by the fact that enemy uses us, or the fact that we have 10,000 customers, or 5 stars on the App Store, or whatever your other piece of social proof is. So I do like this. Keep in mind, most people won't really dive into this. They'll quickly glance at it and go, okay, this is a legit company. Look at all these big people using it. Great, I'm gonna move on now. And now they're hunting for the goods. Now they actually wanna know, how does this thing work? What does it cost? How does it compare to competitors? Now we're getting into the meaty stuff that if you don't start answering those questions, typically people start scrolling like this. In this case, it's a very short landing page, which is good, but there are exceptions we'll talk about. But so if it were long and it didn't immediately get to the meat, I would start scrolling to try to find the meat. If I didn't find it, I'd probably leave and go to the next Google result. So the point I want to make here is the hero in the testimonial section, which again, I'm providing a formula, but you can break it by all means. A/B test it, maybe you'll find something that works better. This is a solid baseline, however, if you don't know where to start. So after that portion of the formula, it's then pretty safe to just go how it works, or start comparing it against competitors, or breaking down the features and making it and having those sections be very self-evident with clear, strong, concise headers. When I scroll past this social proof, I don't know what this is. It's just a bunch of iPhones. And then there's some tiny text. Let's read it. Felix transforms standard text-based content into an array of new engaging formats. Okay, that should have been your hero, or that should have been your header or subheader text. This is the first time you're actually telling me what this product is. It takes text and turns it into an array of engaging pieces of content. That's specific. No, it's not cool and fluffy and salesy and visionary, but nobody wants that when they're reading your homepage or your landing page. They want a clear description of what you do. So far, that is the clearest description. If you start with that on the landing page, I go, got it. Okay, all I got to do is provide text. The rest is like streamlined, automated. See, now the word automated makes sense to me. Now I know what you're talking about. I even kind of get AI power now. Now with the context I have, I can intuit that you're saying, oh, you're going to pick out the best text snippets of this content I've given you and turn that into a video automatically. Now it all comes together. So the lesson there is just be super self-evident. People are not looking for vague hand-wavy stuff like we're going to revolutionize your content that people's eyes gloss over. I'm going to do a couple more thoughts on this, and the next 2 landing pages I do are going to be rapid fire. But I wanted to start with one where you guys can see sort of my longer form general formula, which again, I'm not saying stick to it militantly. Okay, so after this, with these random photos, we have a succinct description, which is kind of buried, which it shouldn't be. Let's keep scrolling. Amazing new formats added instantly to your article pages and ready to share on social media. Okay, it's a little bit redundant. We get that. That was implied by this sentence. Maybe give me something new. That's another key point is if you're being redundant, you are writing your page wrong. Typically, there are very few exceptions. One thing that this person's doing very well is they're not using this image on the left as fluff, which most people when designing landing pages, they'll use filler imagery just from an aesthetic standpoint, like, oh, we have some text here. Let's break it up with some images here. That's opportunity cost. Every image is an opportunity to better pitch your product, to better convey your value proposition. And that's what this person's doing so intelligently. They're actually showing you with this image, it's not some random abstract graphic art of people holding up some sort of sales chart or whiteboard, which everyone's doing. This person is actually saying, look at this. This is what the product looks like in action, in context, once you've published on Felix. You can see the content right there. That's brilliant. That's adding to the value propositions, reinforcing it. I get it. I'm visualizing the value. That is really powerful. So my recommendation there is if you can visualize your product in action, maybe it's a SaaS dashboard, do a time lapse of somebody using the dashboard. Maybe it's an e-commerce product. Maybe do a 360 auto-playing GIF or video showing all angles if it's like a piece of clothing or jewelry, or if it's a mattress, maybe show someone really comfortable on the bed. It also just breaks things up from the monotony of lots of text. Also notice up until here, there haven't been any call to actions, which are these little buttons here, right? Where you're prompting someone to take an action such as sales call, sign up, subscribe to the newsletter, and so forth. And that's okay because they have this, what we call a sticky nav bar here, right? So that's always with you in view. And on mobile, it's even more apparent. It's like right next to your thumb all the time. And people want to digest your hero typically, and your social proof, and the how it works before doing anything. They want to digest what you are before they click a button. So it's okay to defer that button within the page a little bit. But then once you've gotten past that meat, then you just spam it everywhere. Like it always has to be right next to your cursor. It should be basically after every section. That's the sort of pattern we've seen perform best after just running many, many landing page tests, which you guys can ask me about in the questions, by the way. I'm going to wrap up this page in a second. I'm going to do a couple, maybe 2 or 3 more rapid fire ones. Then I'm going to do a quick Q&A. Then I'm going to throw to Bob for his batch of insights. Okay, let's keep going on this page though. I want you guys to get a full picture of what's being done poorly and well. And again, I want to point out, this looks very professional. The copy is concise. It's always concise. It's not confusing, and it's not actually too jargony. So a lot of things are being done well here. Okay, this is really tiny text. Now, the older the person is, the less patience the person has, the less interest they are in your product sort of by default. Usually the less attention they're going to pay to squinting and looking at your tiny 9-point text. So just a design consideration there. And also you're kind of adding fuel to the fire by making it light gray. So it's even harder to read. And what actually happens in practice is someone like myself who's not necessarily looking to buy this right now, I go, I don't want to read that. It's tiny. It's kind of a pain in the butt. What I'm going to do is just focus on the headers. These right here. That's maybe the last lesson I'll impart on this particular page, which is section headers are usually what people will look at to anchor whether they bother reading more. So when someone's skimming, they'll go, okay, effective acquisition. I want to know more about that. They'll say AI automated. I don't care about that. That looks like jargon. So they're using those headers to determine, should I read that paragraph underneath very often? And so if your headers are very descriptive and enticing with a hook, that's the best of both worlds. You get the right people hooked into reading your additional content. I'll just read one. So which one of these is most interesting to me? Okay, effective acquisition. Generate deeper engagement with your best content right across your sites and social. Well, I get that. That's the whole point. That's implied in the premise of the product. You're going to just blast it out there and there'll be social sharing. So say something that isn't self-evident. Give me a novel burst of insight. Like, by the way, because we make it so easy to share in this following magical way, it will lead to the following amazing results. It's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. And now you're reinforcing why Felix is so uniquely valuable to me. So a lesson there is avoid self-evident stuff. If it's already implied by previous sections, give me something new. All right, should I keep, oh, we only have one more section, so let's finish off the section. How am I doing for time? I'm really getting into my time. I'm gonna do super rapid. I'll go super rapid fire in the next ones. Pricing. Actually, I'm just gonna move on for now. I wanna hit more. Here we go. Let's tab through a few of these landing pages and I'll see what really sparks my interest to bother going through with you guys. Because I might only have time for 1 or 2 more, then it's Bob's turn. Let's see here. Give me a moment, just loading these. Okay, let's do this. Pitch deck. Compelling presentations delivering business results. Business results. Everything for a business delivers business results. That's hand wavy fluff. My eyes are starting to gloss over. Don't give me that. Give me a self-evident description. Pitch deck does X, which is important because of Y. The world's first presentation platform built exclusively for, almost every presentation platform primarily built for business. They're almost all business first, so you're giving me nothing new here. 2 CTAs, well, how do I feel about this? I actually love it. I love a choose your own adventure when you empower me to decide what do I do next based on what it is I know I want, as opposed to forcing me through your journey. It's completely fine as long as these lead me to journeys that are constructive and don't skip out on a bunch of good information. I'm going rapid fire here, so let's see what strikes my eye. This is a nice example of just generic imagery that doesn't convey anything, right? This is not adding to the narrative. It's not reinforcing value props. I don't know what this is. My eyes just gloss over it. The font's enormous, which is a weird design decision, but maybe that's an okay thing. Sell better, sell more. Take a look at this section. Whether you're, so this is this person's attempt at social proof, right? Look at all these people who use our product. Whether you're a big company or a small startup, we can increase your sales. Pitch Deck is already helping hundreds of companies make effective sales presentations. I mean, that's totally fine. It's concise. It doesn't add much new, but it's concise, and it shows all of these huge companies using it. It'd be nice if you showed me what were they able to accomplish with it. If you told me Coldwell Banker uses Pitch Deck for 100% of their pitches in 2019, I'd be like, wow, that is very powerful social proof. Because otherwise, I'm like, you're just probably throwing random logos on here. Maybe they signed up for a trial and bounced. Maybe this isn't a legit customer. So a lesson there is social proof is most often effective when you're actually providing context around how did this person use it, and informing visitors to your website that their use is indicative of how amazing your product is because they adopted it wildly or they saw crazy results. Like Beyond Codes started using Pitch Deck, and as a result, they're now able to close twice as many sales deals. That is real social proof. You're giving me the goods. You're not just throwing logos at my face. I'm going to do one more super quick. Give me a second, guys. All right, I'm doing much better now on my pacing here. And let's do, it's too technical. Give your child the best education. All right, let's do this one. Give your child the best education home. Unlimited access to 1,000+ art video lessons for 6 to 18-year-olds. Unlimited access to many videos for young kids. Okay, maybe just say that in human language. Just sometimes if you just say a sentence like one person would talk to another, it just hits your brain a bit. It's more palatable for your brain. Hey, we provide high quality videos for your children to learn. Okay, got it. Now give me a subheader that explains why are your videos so darn good. But this is actually very good, by the way. I'm just being nitpicky. This is a fantastic hero with a great header and subheader text. And I like this a lot. This is imagery that really does complement. It's showing me the ranges of the sophistication of the content. Maybe you're an older child, younger child. It visualizes the types of programs they do. Maybe they're all art-based. So that's giving me real information. I'm going to end with one or two more insights on this page. So let's look at this video since we haven't looked at a video yet. I don't have time to watch it, but let's just see what the idea is here. The best new way to learn art online. Actually, I'm going to have to watch it for a few seconds. All right, let's move on here. Okay, so you're showing the product or the effect of the teaching experience in action. You're showing the outcome of you learning these, going through the curriculum and gaining a new skill. It seems decently well produced, so it doesn't make your brand look cheap and weird. It's not actually the production quality is not that good, but okay, it's probably just reinforcing it. Which, by the way, for this particular product, is a very suitable asset for your homepage. Which is if you're doing something very communal, very interactive, it's about humans, it's about one human teaching another, interacting with each other as students. It might be very productive to show a video on your homepage that shows exactly that, putting the human face to your product and reassuring parents that you are delivering something from reputable professional adults who take this seriously and know how to present themselves in a manner that's not inappropriate for children. So sometimes a video is the best way to capture that professionalism. Not often, but in this case, it absolutely is. And one last example, I'm just going to wrap up here in terms of when a video is suitable. And there's many examples, honestly. But if you have a physical good, oftentimes it's very constructive to show off the beauty of the good if it's beautiful, if it's like fashion or apparel related. So a quick recap of where we are here. I'm going to answer a couple good questions. Keep the questions coming in. Don't stop. This is my favorite part of the webinar. I'm going to throw to Bob. He's going to do his breakdown of some pages. Then we're going to do some Q&A at the end where Neil, Bob, myself, we're all going to come in and answer all of your advanced questions. So stay tuned for that. All right, a couple quick questions. This is a good question. Kirsten Fields asks, what kind of demo requests do you see people ask for? So an interesting thing is when you're A/B testing your landing page, one of the great things to A/B test is whether which of the following three things leads to the best down funnel conversion, meaning they do this thing and then they eventually buy from you. And I want to give you three examples of things you could do. You can go immediately for the sign up, saying, hey, just sign up, get a free trial, give it a whirl, right? You could do a demo. So you could click a button and see the product in action. If you're like a SaaS, an online software business, maybe you let me log into the dashboard without any login credentials, and I get to be wowed by the product immediately in a playground type of environment. And one more example would be perhaps a sales call. If you're like, if maybe a service business, enterprise business, and you go for that demo. And it's not always obvious which is the best to go for to increase that so-called down funnel conversion, those purchases. And I encourage you guys to A/B test one versus another, which I'll talk more about in the Q&A at the end there. I'm going to do one more question. We're not taking more landing pages right at this moment. We may at the very end, so hold off on those questions. Do you have any recommendation on the pricing table? This is a very good question, Dwayne. So this is tricky. I don't have hard data to tell you in a sort of formula that you should or should not have your pricing table on one page versus the other, homepage versus a dedicated page. I couldn't tell you. It is very case by case dependent. What I will say, however, is there's a lot of tricks for pricing tables. Like start with your high price, go to the low one. So people are like, oh wow, the low one looks cheap compared to this high one you first hit me with. A lot of little gimmicks like that. But the one that I don't see people doing enough is breaking down a cost and feature comparison to your most obvious alternatives. So if I'm trying to justify that my product is $200 a month, it's really helpful if underneath you go, by the way, we're $200 a month. And if you were to hire an agency to do this for you, they're $10,000 a month. They take 3 months to figure out what they're doing for your business. And if they go wrong, you're stuck in a contract for half a year, right? So that is very compelling way to contextualize why your price is a good price. And that's something a lot of companies overlook, is they don't bother justifying why their price is great. Now, not every company has to justify it. Oftentimes it'll be self-evident. But if you're pitching a product that is novel, for which people are like, wait, how am I thinking about whether this is price effective? That's when it can be particularly high leverage. Bob, feel free to kick open your screen share. For now, Bob, my friend, it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julian. That was some really fantastic advice. And I love that you were able to give that on the fly. My role at Leadpages gives me the opportunity to do similar things during our weekly coaching calls on Tuesdays. So I'm excited to be able to share some critiques of a few that I've selected as well from those that were submitted ahead of time. So first up, we have wingdatenight.com, which is a cool site, it seems like, for kind of a concierge service for giving people the chance to have couples date nights. So I'm not going to talk about the copy on this particular page. There's a few other things that are a little bit more pressing. So first of all, it's a really good looking site. As you scroll through, you can see there's a lot of key elements here. Good layout, good imagery, all that kind of stuff. But I want to speak for a moment about 3 or 4 things. One is this image. This image is a fantastic image to evoke a date night with parents that are away from their kids or something like that. But the design of the image is this sort of parallelogram is causing my eye to go off the page. So whenever you're looking at a landing page, the images should always be driving people towards the center of the page or towards the call to action button. But with this parallelogram, my eye goes to date night done for you, over to this picture, and then off to this side of the page. And the couple is looking at each other, which is interesting, but from a conversion optimization standpoint, I want the imagery to flow back towards this call to action button, or at least to the middle of the page as we go down further. Okay. The second thing I want to call out is this alert bar or sticky bar. I'm not sure what service you're using to do it, but there's 2 things that I would love to see change with it. Number one is, let's shorten this text so that instead of receive free date night, et cetera, it goes on to 2 lines. Let's shrink it down to just 1. And let's see if we can ask for just 1 piece of information so that it's more likely to go in. Now, a bigger problem, though, is that this header, this alert bar, is actually covering up your navigation. So as soon as somebody lands on this page, they are losing your logo and your branding. They're losing the chance to navigate because they're being covered up by the cover. So one of the things I wanted to show you is if you have the ability, I'm inside of Leadpages right now, if you have the ability, whatever tool that you're using, to make sure that it bumps everything down, Or if you can make it be positioned on the bottom of your page and have it remain in place as you scroll, you're going to have a better chance of seeing success with that. Okay. The next thing I want to point out is this pricing table. So this pricing table is on the home page. Somebody asked in the questions, should I put it on its own page or on the home page? I think it's okay here, but I would like it to be on a dedicated page. I think people would be more likely to find it, and Google will be more likely to find it if you have it that way. But what I don't like is that this toggle is super hidden. So I don't really know that there's a second option if I've kind of scrolled too fast. So I would prefer that if you're going to have a table like this with a toggle, have a prominent left side of the table, but the right side should be visible. And that also allows you to more visually compare your features for the Lux version versus the single date version. Okay, so have both of those in there visible at the same time, and then have a call to action button that's more colorful, higher contrast. The one you want is the Lux one, but the single date one is available on that particular page. The next thing I wanted to share is that this service that you're running is available in Chicago and Los Angeles, but I would never know that until I actually tried to sign up for it. So when I go to take the quiz, this is the first time it starts to introduce to me on this page that I am able to do this from either LA or Chicago. Otherwise, I'm coming to this page, I'm like, this is awesome, but I live in Minnesota. I get this part and I'm super frustrated. So that's another thing. And then this X and X thing kind of blurs out up here to the top. So there's just some UI things in that I would want to caution you about. And then the last thing I wanted to share is if you take this link and you were to share it. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that I would do differently technically too with the page. And I'm going to pull up Facebook, and that's always a risk, but I'm going to pull up Facebook for a second, and I'm going to paste this link in. I want to show you that when you're dealing with home pages, landing pages, etc., and you have a link, you always want to see how is it going to look on social when it gets shared. And this is something called the open graph settings for your particular pages. And if you don't have this explicitly set, Facebook is just going to guess what picture do you want. So again, we have this parallelogram that's going to cause a little bit of a janky look on social. You got an okay title, but that could be better on social. So make sure that you control what that says. Okay. So over in Leadpages, we have a setting where you can just go in and choose what's your image, what's your title, what's your name, et cetera, and it gets done. However you're doing it, whatever programming that you're using for that, please make sure you put in your open graph settings for that. Okay, so there's a few thoughts on wing date night. The second page I want to share is Level Up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which has at its top, Santa Monica, LA. This is a little bit too early to put the address. I like the idea that you're saying right away that you're headquartered in Los Angeles, but you've got a lot of other places that you are serving. So I don't want you to limit yourself just to that. So let's get into your logo, your navigation. Up here in the top right corner, you have call today for, I'm not sure why I would call today, but it says call today. I like the idea of that, but this should be a click to call link. So program into your website the ability for people to click on this so that it actually opens up a phone number. Instead, what I see is 24/7 in this yellow field. That feels to me like a button. And I don't know why I can't click on that. If you ever do a heat map or one of these click tracker software programs, you would see a bunch of what are called rage clicks on people clicking this, thinking that they can call 24/7, but it doesn't do anything. So let's fix that button as well. The bigger issue for this page is I love this hero image of the black belt, but this text is super hard to read, and this button is hard to read too, especially as you scroll down and you have a little parallax effect going on. It's hard to see this word. So what I'd encourage you to do is make sure that you either come into your design, and you can do this with a designer can do this if they know the programming for it, et cetera. But if you're using something like Leadpages, you can easily put in a color overlay over top of the background picture so that text can pop. And if you really want that picture to pop instead, you can always come in and let me remove that shading that I just did for you. You can always come into the individual section and you can set that apart with a little bit of a column background instead. So by doing that, it allows you to still have the feel of what you're trying to showcase with the background image, but you can have this color overlay with some transparency or opacity and make sure that allows your text to really pop, especially for your call to action button. All right, another thing that I really I'm concerned by with your page is as I scroll down, there's a lot of motion and stuff coming in. That's going to make your page load a little bit slower, which Google doesn't really like. But I'm more concerned about the size of this text. Super hard to read. I'm on a big screen and it's okay to read, but a lot of your sub pages, everything is just really hard to read because the text is so small, and you have padding issues with your images and so forth. So let's fix that up a little bit to make that look a little bit better. And then the last thing I'd say is at the very bottom of your page, you've got a technical issue with Google Maps. So whoever did this or you're doing this, make sure you have a functional Google Map if you're going to have it, because this looks like somebody did a placeholder image and they didn't go back and change it. And so it loses credibility for you. And because you have multiple locations, this isn't doing you any good. And you're an in-person business, so you've got to make sure that things like that are working extremely well. Okay. Next up, I'm really excited about this this particular page because it seems like it's got a really core key mission that I would love to support anyway, but it's something cool for you too. So this is diversifytech.co. And Benny Kunche is the person behind this. So collection of resources for underrepresented people in tech. The first thing I would change after reading over your site is I would put in parentheses and their allies, because it seems like the rest of your thing here is not just for underrepresented minorities, but those who are not in that category who could be an ally for what's going on. Love the imagery here. It really showcases the kind of clientele and groups that you're trying to help out. Down here, it gets a little bit too choose your own adventure. Julian, a little bit ago, mentioned liking the ability to choose your own adventure, but if you can consolidate these 9 things into 4 or 5, that would help streamline your visitors flow through what's going on, because this seems a little bit overwhelming to me as I get to this section of the page. Another thing I would say, and this is another technical thing, is I looked at your web code and I did not find a Facebook pixel. So for you and anybody else who's on the call, even if you're not planning on doing any Facebook ads in the near future, and I don't know if you're a nonprofit or not with Diversify Tech, but it seemed like you are in sort of a bootstrappy mode. I don't know what kind of financial backing you have of this, but eventually, or maybe now, you're ready to advertise to get the word out more on LinkedIn and Facebook, et cetera, for what you're doing. But there's no pixel on this page. You have Google Analytics, which is nice, but you have no Facebook pixel. So make sure you put your Facebook pixel on, which allows you to do retargeting and lookalike audiences and so forth in a really effective way. And then the next thing is sign up. So I want to speak to this for just a moment. Right now, you have a sign up button at the top, which is perfect. I love having lead generation opportunities at the top, but it's going to a generic MailChimp webpage instead of a page on your own site. Okay. And then when you're asking for some good information, I love the choices here of what's going on. But after I fill that out, I'm then taken to a page that asks me to go confirm my email address. If you can ask for just the email and not have opt-in confirmation, you're going to get more emails. And once you do have the confirmation, you're sending people to this default MailChimp page, which is going to, not really reinforce your brand. Okay. It doesn't do much for them. They just get information. All right. And this information, isn't really helpful for you. So instead, what I'd love to see you do is to have a thank you page that's on your own website. This is an example built with Leadpages. You have your logo so people know that they came from the right spot. You tell them what they can expect, but then you can ask them to help you spread the word by having social sharing buttons back to your homepage, back to a landing page for more signups. And then I also put in here a link to your social profiles, because obviously you want them to connect to your community too. So having this kind of process on a landing page and a website gives people the ability to easily share what it is that you're doing. Right now, you just have the sharing buttons over here, which is a little bit hidden. And this is really at the time of commitment that you'll get better results. Okay. And I think I've got time for one more example. And this is from EduFlow, another really good looking site. I would say though that the image is loaded a little bit slow because they are rather large. So be careful about that. This is a beautiful page for a software product that I think, would do really well. Hopefully it's doing really well. But there are a couple of things that I would love to see a little bit better. So first of all, you have the header here. And then as I scroll down, you'll notice that navigation disappeared. And then as I get further down the page, it shows up again. So this is what we call a sticky nav on a website. And I would recommend that you keep it sticky the entire time, because your only real call to action button on this page is not even here. It's pretty much text link here. But as I scroll down, there's nothing for me to click on to actually take the next step except for the get started link. So I want to see that all the time. All right. I'd also say that you have a little space here where it'd be perfect for you to have a call to action for something to get started. And Julian mentioned this with another site. I want to give you an example of what I would suggest. I made a quick little mock-up of what you have. So the only real call to action you have is this arrow to look at the next section, right? But if you come into your website builder or your programmer or whoever, again, I'm showing you what it looks like in Leadpages, you come in with a button, and that button says something like get started. It's the same as your get started button here. That works really good. But because you're using software, what I would want to see is I'd want to see another button beside it, like Julian mentioned, where you can have another opportunity for people to do something. So in this case, it may look like, let me put a button down here just for sake of our discussion. It may look at, how it works. Okay, or watch it works, or demo, or something like that. Now, as Julian mentioned, having two buttons of the same color do have conflict. So what I'd recommend is that your primary CTA be solid, and then your secondary be a line button instead. So this allows you to have the hierarchy of what you want people to do, and you can, obviously then put these side by side. So by having that in this spot on your site, you're going to get more people to take the next step, which is to, I think, watch this in action and then get started. Finally, inside of the get started area, this jumps people straight to a little, setup of, giving name, email, etc. But I haven't really chosen a level yet. But I know from looking at your page that you do have multiple levels within the pricing. So my goal and hope for you is that you would have everybody start with a free account. And then as they're going through the process, they choose, once they've been in the app for a couple of days or a week or so, or they've put their first course in, then start giving them the opportunity to purchase. So each one of these should be, I think, a get started for free, so that they can, until they get to this threshold of adding additional things or having more course people, I think you'll have more people take you up on the offer. All right. And I think that's pretty much my time. And do I have more? I think that's about time, isn't it, Julian?
Bob, you nailed it. That was fantastic. And so stay right there, because, and I'm not being patronizing to everybody listening right now, these are the best questions we've had on a webinar, and we've done a lot of webinars. So these are really good. I strongly encourage you to keep them coming, because I'm going to try to get to a bunch of them with Bob and Neil. All right, Bob. So I'm going to queue up a couple of questions for you. If you don't want to answer it, just say pass, and we'll skip to the next one. And okay, before I do that, I just want to point out everybody that what we're going to do after I ask Bob some good questions is we're going to do a joint Q&A. So keep those questions coming. And I'm also going to take a few of your live web pages and do critiques, if you would like them, in the chat section. So stay tuned for that at the end of the webinar. I think you're going to have fun. I'm going to be as blunt as you want me to be. All right, Bob. Let me read some here. If you're a very early company, Bob, early stage startup, for example, how can you use the social proof section if you don't have a lot to talk about? You don't really have customers yet. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, one is you don't. You have it when you have it, and if you don't have it, then you need to find those clients as fast as possible. And you only need one to be able to start telling your story. So right now, your story is your story. Why did you get into this? What was the frustration that you were trying to solve? That's your social proof. It's your mission. It's your energy. It's your excitement about it. And as soon as you have a really good client, you put that into that spot and say how they are excited about working with you.
Great point. And I'll add to that, and I agree completely. One thing I've found some startups do is they'll actually give away their product to like high profile customers or influencers, just to be able to say, hey, by the way, Microsoft or Tim Ferriss uses my product. So you can kind of throw it on there if they're using it, and maybe you don't charge them. All right, next question for you, Bob. How do you think about how long homepages should be. And Manuel continues to ask, short pages that encourage users to go on a tour, might that be better than long pages that just say it all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And remember, you're talking to someone who works at a conversion first company, not a company that does sites that are prioritized by how good they look, but we're talking about ones that convert. And what you'll find us proselytize, and I will say it here, shorter is better. You typically will want people to get to a decision as fast as possible. And if they need more information, then let's fork them down a road somewhere on that homepage. So most of our website templates, for example, have 3 sections: a hero section, some kind of explainer section, and then a final CTA section in the footer. You can always add more if you need to, if you want to add some more testimonials or something like that, but shorter is typically better, and save some of the extra content that you might have for some of those secondary pages.
Absolutely. And sometimes you might even A/B test short versus long and see what might be most appropriate for your business. All right, another question for you, Bob. Gret, I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay-ish. Any specific advice for landing pages that are purely meant for getting people to sign up for your newsletter or your mailing list?
Yeah, don't ask people to sign up for a newsletter. I know that sounds kind of cheeky, but people don't want more emails. They want something that has immediate gratification. So this is a little bit of a rare one with diversified tech, because that's what people want. They want the updates on scholarships and events and so forth. But if you're talking about somebody like the jiu-jitsu, they don't want a newsletter. Okay, they need 5 jiu-jitsu style workouts I can do at home, that I can see right away, 10 minutes of a video or 10 minutes of a PDF I can walk through. That gets my email much faster. And then you also add me to your newsletter. So that's just language on your thank you page of what you'll do. But people rarely, when you do split tests, we do this all the time, they rarely want to sign up for a newsletter or something to get more emails. They want immediate gratification. And that usually comes in the form of what we call a lead magnet, some kind of PDF or video or checklist or something like that people can see very quickly. It's fast for you to make, and it's easy for you to see them take that first step and then communicate to them afterwards. And absolutely have that on a landing page, but also have it on prominent places of your website.
Bingo. One more question for you, Bob. Should there be separate landing pages for different customer segments, or should the segments be blended into one page? For example, Dwayne asks, on the Sparkins page where there were instructional lessons for children, should there have been one page for teens and one page for kids, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, you're in control of where people land on your site. That's why they call them landing pages. Of course, people will type in your website address or they might find that through Google. But when you're advertising or social promotion or emailing people out, always send people towards what would be the best match for them. And that's typically why websites perform so poorly in conversion. We generally see the conversion rates on websites are 1 or 2% if you're lucky. But if you go to a specific landing page, like even this one here, I'm on wingdatenight.com, even this is a good looking page, but if you had a page just for LA and just for Chicago, you would have much better success. Same thing with the jiu-jitsu site. We had people who have the same age kind of thing. So good for our web page, homepage, but for a landing page you're going to send paid traffic to, I want to see, hey, if you've got a kid who's between 10 and 14, that page should speak exactly to that person, to that parent with kids of that age. And the images should be of that kind of age, and the language should be of that age. You'll always see that convert better. And yes, that means that you might have 10 pages that you're keeping track of as your market, but you'll see much higher conversions and then be able to optimize for which ones are performing the best, especially if you have a little bit of a tight budget and you can't just spend $1,000 a day on all the different channels you're doing.
Yeah, when we do A/B tests at our agency, we found that segmenting based on persona, just like Bob's talking about, oftentimes outperforms segmenting based on value proposition, meaning what's the key pitch I'm using for my same product. And when you can really talk to someone and align your imagery, your copy, like Bob said, it can go a long way for making people say, wait, this is actually meant for me. I'm not trying to use a product meant for other people. Bob, Joshua has a really good question for you. He asks, when doing lead capture on a landing page, let's say, for example, I'm giving away tickets for something or some, an ebook for something. But if my actual goal is to get them to eventually buy, how do I bridge the gap? How do I go from the give to the take?
It's all about value transaction, right? So when they first come into your site, they need to see the value of the free information you're giving, what information you're asking for in exchange for an email, and then how do you talk to them afterwards. Do not be shy of asking them for the sale, but realize that they may need a little bit of communication between when they first come to your site and when they actually purchase. That might be an hour, it might be a week, it might be a month, it could be a year or two, depending on what you're offering. So on your thank you page, I would encourage you and everybody else to make sure people know what's going to happen next, and then say, look, if you're in a hurry, let's get on the phone call, or here's the way to buy right now, or whatever. Again, not a lot of people are going to take you up on that, but some will. And those that don't, they know at least that you have something for sale. A lot of times people who are in the newer phase, they think they have to give until they finally ask for the sale. And by then people just think that you're totally free for the taking, being taken advantage of. So don't be shy about asking for that sale. Do it in a way, though, that feels like you're adding more value for a respectable and fair price that you have defined and explained in a pretty good way.
Precisely. And I'll share with you guys how we do it at Demand Curve. So perhaps we'll share a day one teaser of our growth marketing training program. Or maybe we'll get you into our Slack group where marketers exchange advice, or our newsletter, whatever. And all of those are ways to get you into our community. And once you're in our community, on a somewhat regular basis, we'll have a newsletter that will share marketing insights with you. And we'll keep us top of mind, but also in a way that is give. We're not asking for anything. We're making ourselves useful. And in the process, we're demonstrating we are actual authorities on this topic. So then when we do ask here and there, like, hey, by the way, we have a new program, we launched a new program, we have a new product altogether, you're like, okay, well, I trust Demand Curve. This is something I'll look into. So sometimes it's okay to use your webpage to start the relationship, provide value on an ongoing basis, and then ask. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Bob and I are going to talk a little bit about what Demand Curve's doing, what Leadpages is doing, and why it's relevant to this webinar and everything we just said. And then we're going to do some live critiques. Bob may have to go up to him, but I'm going to stick around for a while and go through whatever you guys share with me. When I get those pages from you, I'm going to be enabling chat so you can share your URL. So don't use the Q&A feature to provide your pages. Use the chat feature, which is not yet enabled. Stay tuned for that. And then also Neil's going to come in, do some critiques, answer your guys' questions. He's a landing page expert at Demand Curve and my co-founder. All right, so I'll give you guys a quick idea of what we're up to at Demand Curve and kind of why we're putting on this webinar. I'll just take like 30 seconds here. So we built a training program to teach you guys all of these tenets we're covering from landing pages and other aspects of growth. And so our basic goal is to get you up to our level pretty quickly so you can be self-sufficient at growth. So you don't have to rely on somebody else to do these things for you. So that's in a nutshell what demandcurve.com is, and it applies to B2C, e-com, mobile apps, B2B. We've trained hundreds of companies using our curriculum. And one last thing I'll say about Demand Curve is if you're looking to hire a growth agency, we'll actually now match you with a vetted one that we trust for free. There is no catch. You will never pay us anything. So if you go to demandcurve.com/agencies, part of our way of giving back is we'll help you choose ones that will hopefully be worth your money. And they cover the gamut of Facebook ads and Instagram ads and content marketing and all that good stuff. So head there if you want an agency, demandcurve.com/agencies. Bob, I'm going to throw to you to spend a minute just walking through why we're talking about Leadpages and how it's relevant to everything we just covered.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, what you have seen me share in a couple of the examples here are just some different tools that Leadpages has to empower small business owners to take control of the marketing that they're doing. A lot of the pages that we saw today are the home pages of the company's website. And to be honest, those websites look good, but they typically take a really long time to do, right? I don't know, those of you on the page, if they took you weeks or a month or two to get back and forth with the coordination of the developer, copywriters, designers, et cetera. And then what happens if you need to make any changes? So with Leadpages, what we love to do is give people the ability to experiment with different marketing ideas in such a way that makes them have a really easy time, moving forward with what they've got in place. Okay. So to do that, we give people the ability to make landing pages, unlimited landing pages. We give people the ability to make a complete website if you want to. The Level Up Jiu-Jitsu example I have here is actually one of our website kind of examples that I was sharing. And we also give you the opportunity to do those landing pages with split testing, all that stuff alongside your website. So if you're using WordPress or you're using something kind of older school, you can use Leadpages right up alongside of that. A private offer just for those of you here on the Demand Curve website, a webinar that we're doing. We've hooked you up at leadpages.net/demand curve, all lowercase, all one word, leadpages.net/demand curve.
Amazing. All right, Bob, I'm going to give you another great question. Actually, I guess I'll answer once. It's been a while. So, okay, I'll kick it off with people are asking some good questions around two-sided marketplaces. What do I do in that circumstance when I have buyers and sellers? Should my homepage be talking to both of them? That's where choose your own adventure can be very useful. Basically, in the hero section, the click, I'm a buyer, I'm a seller, then it brings you down to the corresponding section of that same page. Or if you have a lot to say about one of those personas versus the other, then maybe bring them to a dedicated page. But still keep in mind, when someone clicks a button to go choose their own adventure, assume they've ignored the rest of your page. So on the new page, you still need to walk them through, what is it you do? Why are you special? Where's the magic here? Just don't skip all of that because they clicked the button. So I want to recap that because almost everyone I've seen does this wrong. When you click a button to go to the next part in your website, but you haven't yet converted, pretend they've learned nothing. Repeat the good stuff because they probably have read nothing. Another question I'm getting is about e-com versus SaaS. Do all these rules apply when I'm selling a physical good? Or what about fashion when I want to get rid of this header, subheader nonsense and talk about connecting people to our brand and showing photography? Yes, fashion and those types of companies can absolutely warrant fully breaking and disregarding the formula. And your goal of fashion is, if you're selling apparel, for example, or jewelry or makeup or something, probably you first either want to right out of the gate show the product itself or the product as it is on somebody else. So this is how high quality is, and this is what it looks like when you purchased it. This is the input and the output. And the wording, the copy is much less important, right? If you're selling physical goods and you're another jewelry site or another makeup site, people understand what this is. You don't have to hit them over the head with paragraphs of stuff. My recommendation there is go look at the top sites, maybe it's Glossier and other e-com sites, and start with those as a template. And then from there, run A/B tests and run surveys on your audience to use data to inform how do you increment on that baseline. And that's another question I want to quickly answer before I pass over to my co-host here. So people are asking in the Q&A, how do I actually figure out what to say on my landing page and how should I order these sections? Like, where do I even begin? What am I saying? I love this question because it lets me teach you guys sort of an advanced principle that should be introductory, but again, not a lot of people do this, which is data-driven landing page creation, in a sense, starts from running a survey. So if you run a survey on your potential customers, people in your market, and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm selling. What would get you to buy? And what would hypothetically be your objections? Why do you think you would not buy? If you saw the page, like what would throw you off? Is it the pricing? Maybe it's because you don't think this is for your specific need. So find out what they care about and find out what scares them. That is what you ask for in a survey. That survey will then let you know what are the value propositions people care about, what are their concerns, and that is the meat of your page. So the things they care about will instruct how you actually populate all the sections on your page. Oh, they care a lot about it being fast or easy to use. Great. Those are the value props I'll use because a lot of people told me that on the survey. That's how I'm going to start my page off. And when they give me objections like, hey, I think this is too expensive, I will then proactively address those objections on the landing page. So I'm doing, it's like a defense and offense maneuver that I'm weaving in through my landing page. And that is the ultimate trick to improving conversion, or at least creating a decently converting baseline landing page from which you would then run A/B tests. This is an interesting one. Neil, I'm going to throw this to you. Eugene asks, in terms of pricing, what have you seen work for quote-based pricing, like high-end service businesses or commission projects where there aren't clear pricing tiers? What do you do then, Neil?
Yeah, it's fairly difficult. I imagine you're probably selling to enterprises or your service-based business. I know for Bell Curve, our agency for a long time, we put a range to let people know that it could start at something and go all the way up, and it purely depended on the types of services they needed. So, and it still gave people somewhat of an idea of what they could expect. Because people don't necessarily want to fill out a form to get a demo to find out that, and go through that demo to find out that your product costs $100,000 or something. So maybe at least give some sort of indication of how much it costs, or the size of business that your product is for. Because generally, if it's for an enterprise company, they're gonna pay a ton.
Yeah, I'd love to. One of the things I learned from a gentleman named Marcus Sheridan was when you have a quote-based setup, you still want to talk about pricing on your landing page, on your homepage. And it's about what goes into the cost, what goes into the pricing decision, why, what makes it less expensive, what makes it more expensive, and how will you be treating people fairly during this quoting process.
Oh, we may have lost him again. Neil, I'm going to throw you another question.
Sure.
Neil,
you've lost me again. I apologize.
Oh, no worries, Bob. You stick around, and when your connection's good again, we'll throw you some good questions.
I'm actually quite interested in answering the question: when using forms to capture leads in a landing page, what are the best practices in terms of form length and position? I would say in terms of form length, I generally find that try to get it as short as possible. Only ask the bare minimum. We've also found that even breaking our form up into a couple smaller chunks makes it seem more approachable. So like the first, it'll purely just be like their name and email address. Because if they bounce, we can at least follow up and ask why they bounced. Whereas if we had one long form, they might get to part of it and just leave, and it was never submitted and we can't follow up. So I see a lot of forms asking for random things like their phone number or company name or website. You can probably get their website from their email address. Just try to minimize as much as possible and just get the bare minimum that you need to take it to the next step.
Also, a tip there is if you just have their business email, sometimes you can use clearbit.com to pull everything else, who they work for, what their job title is, and so forth. So there are a bunch of tricks there. Neil, before you begin, I'm going to rapid fire a couple thoughts here because people are asking, do we advise A/B testing pricing? That could be super dangerous. It can really annoy people who find out you're offering lower pricing to other people. So usually instead of A/B testing it, I'll do it in cohorts. Like for the next 2 months, the price is this. For the next 2 months after, the price is this. And if anyone comes and complains like, hey, why was it cheaper then? Then on a case-by-case basis, maybe we'll grandfather them into the lower pricing, right? That's it for today's webinar. You can check out demandcurve.com for details on our growth marketing training program and other cool growth-related products that we work on. Have a great day.